Hello everyone, welcome back to Full Stack Simplified. My name is Prashun and today we are going to see how we need to implement a dark theme in a React web application using Material UI. Now we are going to follow all the best practices and industry standard coding patterns. So let us quickly have a look on what we are trying to build today. So this is a very simple demo of what we are trying to build. So here we have a dark mode playground with a switch theme button which just pops up a menu where we can choose from either light, dark, or system, right? So even if I go ahead and simply choose the dark theme, it will update the whole playground and also all the elements within it. So be it heading, the card, the avatar, chip, button, everything, as well as the custom component which we have just built. Now if I go ahead and choose the light mode, it would again turn it back to the light mode. Apart from this, we also have a system. So whatever your current system, what is the current operating system has the theme selected, that would change the theme for your web application as well. So let me quickly bring up my system settings, and if you can see, we have dark mode enabled throughout our system, right? If I go ahead and just simply select light, it would reflect here as well. And even if you just refresh whole web page, right, what you can see is this theme is getting persisted every time. Let's say I switch to dark and refresh it, right? This theme gets persisted. So we'll look into how to build everything from scratch, following the best practices and building a scalable code and scalable system so that it can be scaled and used within different sections or different applications as well. So without any further ado, let's quickly get started. Let us begin by setting up our project first. In this case, we'll be using a simple command line tool called Vite. You can simply visit their website on vitejs.dev and then click on Get Started. If you scroll down, you can see there's a list of all the available templates which we can choose from. It includes vanilla JavaScript, React, Vue, as well as the TypeScript variations of those frameworks. Now, if you scroll down a little bit more, you can see a simple command. Simply copy that, open up your terminal and paste it right here. This is going to run the Vite command line tool and is going to ask you several questions around your project. Now the first thing is the project name. So in our case, we are going to add a name of React Material Dark Mode. Next, we're going to choose React as our framework and TypeScript as the variant of that framework. The next step is to basically navigate to this newly created folder and run this simple command to install all the dependencies which is required to set up this project. Now, meanwhile this happens, you can simply go to your browser and open up the Material UI homepage. Inside this, simply click on this Get Started button and choose the installation section. Here, we need to simply copy this first command which you see on the screen and paste it right in the terminal. Now, apart from all these packages, that is MUI Material, Emotion React, as well as the Emotion Style, we also require MUI icons. So if you scroll down in the same page, you will see a command which helps us install these things for us. Now simply copy this @MUI/icon material and paste it right here. Now you can press enter and this will install all the packages required around the Material UI library, icons, components into our project. Now once you are done, you can simply open up your favorite editor. In my case, I'll just simply open up my VS Code. And in here, what I'm going to do is I'm first going to open up this terminal and simply run npm run dev to start up my local server. Now, if you can see, this is the very basic boilerplate code which we get by setting up this Vite plus React project. Now, we need to clean up some of the things before we move on with the actual tutorial. For that, you can simply open up your src folder, delete the app.css. Inside the app.tsx folder, I'm simply going to remove all these imports as we do not require them at this moment, and also clean up this state. And for now, let's say we are just returning only a div instead of all these things. So this will be a simple div returning hello. Now inside the index.css, we do not require all of these styles, so I'm going to simply remove it and add 3 basic styles to the root of all the elements. First one is the box sizing of border box. Then I'm going to add a margin of 0 as well as a padding of 0 to all the elements to avoid any unnecessary spacing between them. Now if we head to our browser, we can simply see a hello text being visible on the screen. Now, as we already saw previously in the demo, that we'll be having a simple button and a menu to toggle between different themes. And in order to do so, we must have a global state which can be controlled from anywhere of our application. And the best way to do is to create a simple theme context for our application. For that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a separate folder called theme context. And within this folder, I'm going to create another file called index.tsx. Within this file, the first thing which I'm going to do is going to create a constant called theme context, which will be equals to create context coming from the React package. And let's add a default value of null to this. And let's also export this so that it can be used within different files as well. Next, I'm going to create a component called theme context provider, which is simply going to expect a children prop, and it is simply going to return theme context dot provider, and we're simply going to pass the children which we are getting as a prop. Now this theme context dot provider also expects a value prop, and for now let us simply add an empty object to it. Now, as we make progress in this tutorial, we'll keep on adding the things which we require to pass to the children. Now let us also add a type to this React component. So in our case, this will be React.function component. And since we are also using children as a prop, so we can simply use React.props with children like this. Now this is complaining as of now because we have a default value of null and we are passing an empty object. But yeah, we'll soon fix it by adding different values which we need to provide to all the subscribers of this context. Now let us begin by adding our first state to this context. And in this case, I'm going to add a state called theme mode. And we also have a set theme mode function. And let us use state from React. Now this theme mode typically consists of three values, that is light, dark, as well as a system. So in our case, we can create an enum for that and use it as a type as well as a value for this useState. For this, I'm going to simply create a new file called types.ts. Under this, I'm going to create an enum called iThemeMode, which is going to be equal to light, dark, as well as the system theme, right? Now, apart from this, since we are using TypeScript, let us also add a type to our theme context. So I'm going to create an interface called iThemeContext. And for now, since we'll be passing this theme mode to all the subscribers, let us add a value of theme mode, and the type is again iThemeMode. That's the type of the enum. In our context, now simply use this enum as a type of this useState. So I'm going to say iThemeMode, and typically we'll also have a default value of iThemeMode.light. In addition to this, let us also use the interface for the context which we created. So I'm going to add iTheme context like this, and also add a null type for the default value of this theme context. Now, as a next step, let us create this light and dark theme mode using our Material UI. So if you head back to your browser, and inside this, if you search for create theme, there's a function which Material UI gives us to create our custom theme. So you can basically customize the primary color, the main color, the secondary, and all those sort of things. Now we are not just concerned about this primary and secondary color that you can simply come to this page and read more and see how to customize all these things, but we are mostly concerned about the dark and the light mode. So for that, in our theme context, I'm going to create another file called theme.ts, and within this, I'm going to simply create a app light theme, and this is again we are using this create theme function coming from MUI material, and in here I'm going to just override background styles of our color. So you can go ahead and override all the primary, secondary, error, and all sort of colors which are available. But we are since only concerned about the light and the dark mode. So I'm just overriding the background color for the paper and the default. And in a similar fashion, I'll also create a dark theme, which is again going to have a background color with a default and a paper, which is in a grayish tone. And just one more addition is that we are adding a mode of dark right here inside this palette. Now this makes sure that we are using the dark mode from the Material UI. The next thing is to come back to our context and create a state which is going to basically store what is the current theme of our application. So I'm going to simply create a const theme set theme, something like this. And in here, we're going to say use state. And this again is a type of theme coming from MUI material. And initially, let's add a default value of light theme mode. So I'm going to say app light theme like this. And this is again coming from the theme file which we just created. Now next, I'm going to create a function called switch theme mode, which we are going to pass to the theme switcher component, which will help us switch between different themes. So I'm going to simply name it as switch theme mode, and this is going to accept an argument called mode, and this will be again of only three types, that is light, dark, and system. So we are going to use this enum as a type for this mode, and we're going to say theme mode, and in here within this function we are simply going to update the state, that is the set theme mode, to this particular mode which we are getting from the arguments. Now let us start by adding these switch theme mode and theme mode to our value prop. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to pass this theme mode as well as switch theme mode like this, and since we are also getting this error, let's add this to our type. So I'm going to say switch theme mode. Let's simply copy it from here so that we don't have to type it again and again. And this is a simple function which is going to expect an argument, that is mode, and this is a type of theme mode, and this is going to simply return void. That's it. Now with this function created, we will be able to successfully update this theme mode state of our application. But based on this switching, we need to also set this current theme of our application, right? So for that, let us create an use effect hook. Within this use effect, what we're going to do is on change of theme mode, we're going to change the current theme of our application. So let's simply use a switch case here. So I'm going to use a switch theme mode like this, and within this I'm going to use different cases. So let's say for the first case, if I see theme mode dot light, I'm going to set the theme to app light theme and also break from this case. Now the second case, that is the theme mode dot dark, we are going to set the theme state to app dark theme, and this is again coming from the themes file which we just created, and again break from this case, right? Now in the last case, that is the theme mode dot system, we need to first decide what exactly our system theme has been set to. So is it light, is it dark? So let me show you how we can do this easily by a simple hook, which is again coming from Material UI. So I'm going to say theme mode dot system, and within this let us see how to switch between dark and light. Now in here, I'm going to create a separate variable called system theme, and this is going to be equal to a hook called use media query, again coming from Material UI, and in here we are passing this prefers color scheme dark. So if the system mode is in dark, we'll get a value of true, else we'll get a value of false. So let us just convert this into a ternary operator and return theme mode dot dark if true or light, right? Now let us also add a type to this constant which we just created, that is a system theme. So ideally this variable will have either a value of dark or light. Now we could go ahead and create a different interface for this type, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same enum which we created for the theme mode and use a property called exclude coming from the TypeScript. So I'm going to say exclude. What I'm going to exclude is, so I'm going to exclude theme mode dot system from what? From theme mode. So this will ideally give us two values, that is either the light or the dark, right? Now in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch between the system theme, right? So I'm going to again add a nested switch like this, and if you prefer if else instead of switch case, that is also fine, but for me I'm going to simply say system theme right here. Within there I'm going to add our first case, that is again theme mode dot light. In that case, I'm going to simply set the theme to app light theme, break from this case, and in the second case, that is a dark mode, I'm going to set the theme to app dark theme and break. And let us also, just for our safety, add a default mode, that is, we'll add a default to light mode for our application. So once this is done, what we are going to see is on change of this theme mode, our app theme is also getting changed. Now this is again going to ask as system theme as a dependency, this because this is a value coming from a hook. So we can simply add the system theme as a dependency. So whenever the system theme changes or whenever this theme mode changes, we're going to rerun this hook, right? And based on that, we'll be getting either the light or the dark mode in this theme value. Now, in order to use this theme value, we get a theme provider from Material UI. So instead of just returning this children like this, we're going to wrap it with theme provider coming from MUI Material. We can pass the theme value as the theme state, which we have here. And inside this, we can pass the children and then simply close it. Now, until this, if you feel any problem or any difficulty in understanding any of the code or any of the structure, feel free to comment down your question, your problems, and I'll be very happy to help you from my side clearing all those doubts. Additionally, if you are new to React context, I have a full-length video attached in the description below which is again from my channel. You can have a look into that. Let me know if that works for you, and if any other specific questions, please feel free to comment down, and I'll be really happy to help. Now, as a next step, what we're going to do is we are going to see all these things happening visually, right? So let us first create our theme switcher component, and then we'll create a playground kind of thing as we saw in demo. So we'll be using different MUI components like card, dividers, avatar, chip, buttons, and we'll see how this theme switching context is working, right? So let us first create a different folder for this component. So I'm going to say components like this, and inside this, I'm going to create a new file called themeswitcher.tsx. This file, we are going to simply create a React component called themeswitcher, and instead of returning a div, we'll just simply return a fragment. And inside this fragment, we'll return a button coming from Material UI. And let us add a switch theme text to this button. Now, in addition to this, we'll also add few props. One is the variant, which is contained. Now, another thing is let's also add an on-click listener to this. And as of now, let us pass an empty function, which we'll be replacing soon. And let us also add an icon, which will be a start icon. And in here, we are going to pass a palette icon, simply like this. And this palette icon will be coming again from Material UI. So let us also import that. And we can also simply remove this React import and import palette icon from MUI/icons material/palette. That's it. And our next thing is we are going to create a menu which is going to contain all those three values, that is the light, dark, and system. For that, I'm again going to use this menu component coming from Material UI, and within this we need to pass certain props. So let's say one is the open. So let's create a state for the open state. I'm going to say const open menu and set open menu, and we'll just have a use state coming from React, and let's have a default value of false. Now this menu also requires a reference to this button so that it can be mounted within this button. So when we click on this button, it should open a menu attached to it, right? So let us create a reference to this button first. So in here, I'm going to create a constant called button ref, which will be equals to use ref coming from React, and the type will be the HTML button element, and initially let's pass a value of null, and let us also pass this as a ref to this button component simply like this. Now in here we can just simply pass this state as open menu. We can pass an anchor element to this button ref, and we again going to have an on close handler attached to this menu component. So let's add again an empty function as of now. And within the menu, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add three menu items. So menu items is again a component coming from MUI material. First one is the light, right? Second one again is a menu item, and this will be a dark. And third one basically is the system, right? And if you can see that Copilot is giving a perfect suggestions in that. Now within the on click, we need to do something. And we need to also highlight the currently selected theme. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the use context hook and use our context, the theme context, which we created. So I'm going to say use context, pass the theme context like this, coming from our theme context file. And then I'm going to extract two values from it. One is the theme mode and another is the switch theme mode. Now let's also create those handlers to open and close the menus as well as switch theme. So the first handler I'm going to create is handle open. Now this thing is simply going to set the open state of the menu to be true. Next, let's also add a handle close function in here. And within this, again, we are just setting the open menu to false. That's it. Let's also quickly attach it here. So in our on click for this button, we're going to add this handle open. And in here, we're going to add handle close. That's it. Also, this will be throwing us error because we need to pass button ref dot current to anchor element, and now it's fine. Now next, we are also going to add a handle switch theme function, which is going to accept a mode, that is iTheme mode, and let us also not forget to import it from the enums, right? Next, what this function is going to do is this function is going to switch theme mode to the particular mode which is passed, and also call the handle close function just to close the menu. So whenever you click on any of the mode changes and it also closes the menu, right? Now this handle switch theme basically comes here. Now in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this handle switch theme function and simply pass iTheme mode dot light, right, like this. And next we're going to again pass dot dark and finally dot system like this. Now in order to also highlight this currently selected theme, we can use this theme mode. and we are getting some error as this is I theme context was null. What we can do is we can simply add a type as dot I theme context. That's it. We can also use these theme mode in order to decide our selected state. So we can pass a prop called selected, and we can check if the theme mode is equals to the I theme mode dot light. Then let us highlight this. In similar fashion, we can add these props to other menu items as well for dark as well as the system. So now we are complete with this theme switcher component. Let us also add a simple type, that is the React dot function component. That's it. Now within the app.tsx, let us create our playground and see everything happening visually. So in here, simply remove this hello as of now, and let's create a h1 tag, and I'm simply going to add a text like MUI dark mode playground, right? Let's also add a few styles, and this is again a style which we are passing inline. So I'm going to just add a margin of 22 to the outer div, as well as the h1 we are going to add some subtle styles like margin bottom of 40, so that the playground as and the text has some gap, some distinction between them, right? So I'm going to say margin bottom of, let's say, 40 or something like that, right? Now in here within our playground, let us first import the theme context provider which we created. So this is the theme context, and within this, let's use our first MUI component, that is the container, and let's pass a max width of, let's say, large. Now you can read more about all these components in the Material UI documentation, and if you need any assistance or any help, or if you want me to create a video on different components coming from the Material UI, let me know in the comments below, and I'll surely be happy to help in that. Now within this container, I'm going to use another component called paper, right? And within this paper, I'll have a box. Let us also import the box, and let's add a height of 600 to this, and let's say padding of 4. So basically you are able to do all these things because Material UI basically gives you an ability to pass these style props to any of your elements. So either you can pass it directly, or you can use SX to pass different props, right? Like padding 1, padding 2, let's say like this. Now within this box, the first thing which I'm going to do is I'm going to create a typography. This typography is nothing but a text element for this, and I'm going to add a variant of h1. Let us also import the same from the Material UI package. When next, within this box, let us also import our theme switcher. So this is the same switcher component which we just created. Simply import it, use it like this. And now let us use different components from the Material UI to play around, right? So let's say I want to add a card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import card from MUI, right? So I'm going to simply use card and add a card header. Let's say card, add a title of card title. Within the card content, I'm going to use a typography and add it a variant of body 1. So it's a small text, and I'm just adding a random text here and just closing all those tags, right? After the card, let's add a divider just to get the distinction between different elements, and I'm just going to import it from Material UI. And as I was talking, like, right, either we could pass these props directly if it is available on that particular element, or we can use the SX prop and pass all those things like margin Y, margin X, and all those style components, all those style values to this particular element. Next, I'm going to create a stack, right? And within the stack, I'm going to simply add a couple of more elements from Material UI. So I'm going to add avatar, I'm going to add a chip, right? I'm to add again a button. Let's say just click me, and another variant of button called contained, right? And just save it and see how things are working on browser as of now. So if I just refresh it, right? Click on switch theme, press on dark, see how seamlessly the theme changes for all the Material UI components. Now if I go back to light, it goes back to light. If I switch to system theme, right? Now my system theme is basically in a light mode. Let me just pull out my system settings. And if you see, I am in a auto mode, and as of now, this is a time-based thing. Now, if I just simply choose dark, right? See how seamlessly this changes. If I choose, light, right? It changes accordingly, right? So this is basically how we can integrate the theme switcher into our components, into our web application so seamlessly. Now, one thing, if you see, even if I go to dark mode and just press a refresh, right? This thing comes back to light because we are not persisting this theme mode anywhere, right? So let's do that. So if you come back to this theme context, right, what we can do is in the theme context, whenever this theme switching happens, we can just simply store it in a local storage for now. So I'll just create a different function, const set theme mode to preference, right? And this is again going to take a mode, and this type will be iTheme mode. And this is simply going to store it in the local storage. So let's say local storage, let's set item theme mode to vim mode. Let us also mark this function as private so that we don't mistakenly export this function or use it in any other part of the code or any other subscriber. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to call this function right here when we switch the theme and pass the mode as well. Now this part basically sets the theme mode to the local storage. But we also might need to load this when our app loads, right? And the best way to do this is again use a use effect hook. So within this use effect hook, I'm simply going to add an empty dependency array so that this only runs when our app mounts for the first time. And in here, I'm going to again create a different function. So let's not write all the code within the use effect. We can just create a function and I'll just name it const get theme preference or theme mode preference like this. And within this is basically going to return us theme mode. So this will be either a light, dark, or the system name, right? So this is going to return us that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a theme mode from preference like this. So from local storage, right? And if this thing exists, right? So I'm going to check if this theme mode preference exists. I'll simply return that. Else I'll return a default value that is the light. And let's also call this function within the use effect hook, which we just created. So in the use effect right here, I'm going to get the theme mode from preference. I'm going to call this function, right? Also, let's spell const correctly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to update this theme mode state. For that, simply set theme mode to this value. That's it. Now, if I go back to this thing, we switch back to dark, reload, we see this thing is getting persistent. You can check that if we go to the application, we see we have a dark mode, right? Now, if I go back and switch to, let's say, system, it changes to system. And even if we reload, right, it stays in system mode. Let's also check that by just checking it, like changing the theme mode to like the system mode to dark and refreshing it, right? Also, even if the system mode is dark and we select light and refresh, it remains like that. So this is well and good and working perfectly. Just one more thing which I just wanted to discuss here with you guys is we have been using, if you see in the playground, right, we had used all the components which are coming from Material UI. But what if we wanted to use a custom component, right? And we want to use theme in that way. So let us simply go ahead and create a custom component like this, custom component, and we don't expect any prop or anything. This is just for the demo purpose. I'm creating a custom component, and in here, I'm going to simply return a div, right? Now, let's say if you want to customize or style this div or this text based on the theme, what exactly will you do? So from the Material UI package, we get a very handy hook called use theme, which has all the values, all the palettes, all the colors, spacing, padding, everything within this variable, and it changes whenever you change the current theme. So if I just save it and let's say add a style to this div, let's say I'm going to add a style of background color, maybe, right? And I'm going to say theme dot palette dot primary dot main, something like that. Next, let's also add a padding, and we are not adding a padding manually of 22 or 23. Let's add it using the theme. So we have a theme dot spacing, and we can have two. So these spacings has a predefined value. You can go ahead and read the Material UI documentation, like what value exactly do we get when we set this spacing to 2, 3, or 4, or any such arbitrary values, right? And let's also add a text color. So I'm going to say color of theme dot palette dot primary dot contrast text, right? Now let's use this custom component as well. So I'm just simply going to add this within this box. So I'm going to simply call this custom component like this, and if we go ahead, I'll just close this. We have this custom component, right? Even if you go ahead and click on dark, see the color text changes, the primary color changes as well. And we can test it by just commenting down the styles. So if we comment down this, right? So even if we switch to light, right? Even if we switch to dark, these things doesn't change. But whenever we uncomment this, like add these styles using the theme hook, the use theme hook, we see these things changing based on the styles. So let's say for the system, from light to dark. So guys, this is how exactly you create a complete application with Material UI and implement dark mode within your application. So it has been great sharing this knowledge with you guys. Thanks for watching, and do let me know how do you like this video, and please stay tuned and subscribe to my channel for more contents like this.